Hello, this is question 6 from the 2008 MAT. So this looks like the logic question. We had a similar thing for question 6 in 2007. We've got A, B and C are three people. One of them's a liar who always tells lies. Another is a saint who always tells the truth. The third is a switcher who sometimes tells the truth, sometimes tells lies. They make the following statements. Who is the liar? Briefly explain your answer. Right, if you watch my previous video on this type of question, we had a certain structure that we were laying out where we'd set a hypothetical. So let's say if A is the saint, say, so one of the ones that we got a handle on, it could be the saint, it could be the liar. We actually had this first statement in the last question, so we'll end up doing both. So we set a hypothetical, then we say something about their statement. So we can then say their statement, in this case, I am the liar, is false. So we've got a contradiction. We've got someone who's meant to be only saying things that are true, saying something false. So we can then say, well, that is a contradiction because we're setting up these chains and we're wanting to say for each chain, is it a contradiction or is it fine? Is it coherent and consistent? In this case, it's a contradiction. So A is not the saint. We can write out exactly the same sentence because we did this last time. Change saint for liar and false for true, and we got exactly the same thing, because if A is lying, by saying I am the liar, he's telling the truth. Well, that doesn't work. So we end up then saying, well, A can't be, so we got therefore A is not a saint, therefore A is not a liar, therefore A is the other one, the switcher. So we got A is switcher. So if A is the switcher, we could say then, well, what about B? So if B is the saint, we can set it out the same way. If B is saint, then their statement, A is the liar, is false. Therefore, contradiction. Therefore, B is not the saint. So therefore, B is the liar. So I haven't written out every sentence, but you should be able to see what I'm getting at. And then therefore C is the saint. So that's what we want. B is the liar. That is part 1. Part 2. P, Q and R, three more people, a liar, a saint, and the third a contrarian who tells a lie if he's the first to speak or if the preceding speaker told the truth. Okay, right, I'm going to have to get to grips with that one. Otherwise tells the truth. Right, they make the following statements. Again, who is the liar? Right, let's go through then the same pattern on this. So let's say the first one there, if P is saint, then what happens off of this? Q is the liar. Right, they're not talking about themselves, so we can't go straight into that statement of saying that statement is false, because we don't know. That could be true, that Q is the liar. So let's take that. You know, if they're telling the truth, as they must be, as the saint, then we can say that Q is the liar, which means that R is the, what was it, contrarian. Right, so if Q is lying, that R is the liar. So that is fine. So what was it with a contrarian? The Q is lying. So that means if he's gone after a liar, then he must be telling the truth. So telling truth after Q, because that is the rules of the contrarian. So what is R actually saying? P is the liar. So that's false. So then you can say their statement, P is the liar, is false. And then that gives us our contradiction. So therefore we can rule out P is not the saint. So that's something that we've got there. Right, let's try the next one then. So if Q is saint, so we've ruled out that one. If Q is saint, then R is the liar and P is the contrarian, because that's just going from their statements. So if P is the contrarian, so if they speak first, they are lying, which is fine, isn't it? Yeah, if P is the contrarian, they're saying that Q is the liar. Yep, so that is a lie. R is saying that P is the liar, which is also a lie. So that actually works out fine. So this is all consistent. So, okay, that is good. So let's try the last one just to see that it doesn't work. So if R is the liar, the saint, I should say, if R is the saint, then we've got P is the liar and that Q is the contrarian. So P comes out saying that Q is the liar, and yes, that is a lie, so that is fine. Then Q going after P would be telling the truth. Telling truth after P is then saying that R is the liar. So there's your contradiction. So that works out fine as well. So we've ruled out R being the saint. We've ruled out P being the saint. Q has to be the saint, which means that R is the liar. Well, that one was a lot more involved, but I've set aside a new sheet because I remember from the last paper it takes a lot of writing to do these questions. So third part of the question, X, Y, and Z, three more people, a liar, a switcher, and a contrarian. Right, the saints have all gone away. And we've got 5 statements. So who is the liar amongst these? So again, we're looking for the liar. Right, so I can't do the usual start off if X is a saint because there aren't any. But the liar is the one that we've got more of a handle on than the switcher or the contrarian. So I'm going to go with that as a starter then. So if X is a liar, what does that then mean? Then X is lying. Okay, fine. So Y still could be either. I think we're going to have to do a double commitment here on the hypothesis. So let's say X is a liar and Y is the, contrarian. And the means that Z is the switcher. Well, we're going to have a lot of permutations on this. So if X is the liar, he's saying that Y is lying, which is fine. Y then says that Z is the liar. So Y coming after X should be telling the truth that Z is the liar. So that doesn't work. Right, so that must be true after X. So, and then we can say, as we did before, statement Z is the liar is false. Therefore, we've got our contradiction. So we can't have contradiction. We can't have X as the liar and Y as the contrarian. So now we could go for X is the liar and Z is the contrarian. How is that one going to pan out if we've got that? So X is lying. Okay, well, whatever. Z needs to be telling the truth about X being the liar. So we could go, so we know we've started off with a lie here. Y is the liar. That is fine because Y is the switcher in this case. So that is okay. Y then comes in. Y could be saying anything. Okay, in this case, they're saying Z is the liar, which is a lie, but Y is allowed to lie. Z would then have to be telling the truth in this case about X being the liar, which is the case. So that is fine. X then lies about Y being the liar. So that is fine. And then Y again could be saying anything. So that is actually consistent, which makes me think that that is going to end up being the answer. But let's look at some of the others. I'm not going to be able to write all of these out in full because there just isn't enough space on the page. I'll change colour to distinguish what I'm doing on the next bit. But you're wanting to set them out in this. It's the same format. It's just a little bit more involved. So we're setting out multiple conditions at the start and then looking at what's happening with a contrarian as well to say, well, the contrarian must be telling the truth or not, depending on who had gone before them. But again, we're still saying, right, this statement is true or false, and we're expecting it to be true or false. So it's a contradiction. Right, so let's go then with if Y is the liar and X is the contrarian. So let's just think through the logic of this. I'm not going to be able to write it all out. So if X is the contrarian and he's speaking first, he must be lying. Well, that immediately falls apart because he's telling the truth at the beginning. So that must be lie as first. So you'll be going then contradiction. So that's ruled out that one. Then we could say if Y is the liar and Z is the contrarian, then that means that our Y is the liar, Z is the contrarian. So it'd have to be telling the truth after Y, which means he'd have to be telling the truth about X being a liar. So again, contradiction. So that's ruled out those Y options. Now, what if we had Z? So if Z was the liar, X is the contrarian. So if X is the contrarian, he'd have to lie as first. So that is fine. Then Y could be saying anything, but he's telling the truth in that first bit, isn't he? Yeah. So he's telling the truth there because Y is telling the truth. He just happens to be telling the truth as the switcher. Z is then lying again, which is fine. So X as the contrarian would have to be telling the truth that Y is the liar. So we'd be saying here true after Z, and then that is your contradiction because he's saying that Y is the liar, Y is liar is false. Contradiction. So we've got one more permutation then. So if Z is the liar and Y is the contrarian, so X is saying that Y is the liar, which is a lie. So Y would have to be telling the truth that Z is the liar, which he is. Then Z would be lying about X being the liar. Fine. X is then saying that Y is the liar, which is a lie. So Y would have to be telling the truth at the end that X is the liar. So again, true after X. And it's that last statement. So X is the liar is false, which means we again have our contradiction. So the long and the short of all of that is the consistent one was this one, with X being the liar and Z the contrarian and Y the switcher. So yeah, there's a lot involved there. I mean, the logic part isn't that bad. I think particularly if you build it around the structure of these statements, if this, then that, then contradiction or not. Okay, this is just setting out more. You can see why this is for computer science people, because you're doing a if, then, if this, then that, if this, then, and then we got an else. And then in this case, we got if this and this and this. So we've got an if and. So you're just doing all of the sort of logic that you get in those branches in code. It's, very much a coding thing. But yeah, that was a nice question. I think that was better than the one they had last year for the logic question. I think this one was a little bit more difficult, which makes it more enjoyable.